The endless ribbon of asphalt stretching across America's heartland is more than just a road. For millions of truckers, it's their office, their home, their whole world. A world of diners, truck stops, and lonely nights under a vast, dark sky. But for a time, this world became a hunting ground. A killer was stalking the highways, preying on the very people who keep the country moving. This isn't just a story about crime. It's about the shadows that lurk on the loneliest stretches of our nation's roads, and the men who drove straight into a nightmare they never saw coming. Imagine this. You've been on the road for 12 hours. Your eyes are heavy, your back aches, and all you want is a hot meal and a few hours of sleep. You pull into a familiar truck stop, the neon sign a welcome beacon in the dark. It feels safe, a community of fellow drivers all sharing the same life. You might strike up a conversation with someone at the counter, share a joke, complain about the price of fuel. You'd never suspect that the friendly stranger next to you has a different, more sinister purpose. You'd never imagine that this ordinary stop could be your last. This was the terrifying reality for truckers traveling through the I-70 corridor and other major routes in the early 1990s. One by one, men were disappearing. Not just their trucks, but the men themselves. At first, it was easy to dismiss. Trucking is a transient life. Maybe they just quit, found a new job, or decided to start over somewhere else. But then, the bodies started turning up. Found in desolate fields, wooded areas, or shallow creeks, often miles from where their abandoned rigs were discovered. A chilling pattern began to emerge. The victims were all truckers, all men, and all had been found far from home. Law enforcement agencies across multiple states were baffled. The crime scenes were scattered over thousands of miles, crossing jurisdictions and making it incredibly difficult to connect the dots. The killer was like a ghost, moving unseen along the same arteries of commerce as his victims. He blended in perfectly with the trucker subculture. He knew their routines, their stopping points, their vulnerabilities. He knew how to gain their trust in a world where a friendly face could be a welcome sight after days of solitude. The investigation, later codenamed Task Force 1-70, was one of the largest multi-state manhunts in history. Detectives from Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and beyond pooled their resources, trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces scattered across the country. They interviewed hundreds of potential witnesses at truck stops, poring over logbooks and receipts. They realized the killer wasn't just opportunistic. He was methodical. He targeted specific types of drivers, often those traveling alone. The cause of death in each case was eerily similar, suggesting a single, meticulous predator was at work. As the body count rose, a wave of fear swept through the trucking community. Drivers who once felt a sense of camaraderie and safety at truck stops began to look at each other with suspicion. The open road, a symbol of freedom, now felt like a trap. Companies warned their drivers to be cautious, to travel in pairs if possible, and to avoid picking up hitchhikers or engaging with strangers. But for many, that was easier said than done. The job demanded long, lonely hours, and the very nature of the work made them isolated targets. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A witness who remembered seeing one of the victims with another man shortly before he disappeared. The description was vague, but it was a start. Investigators began to build a profile of their suspect. He was likely a trucker himself, or someone who could easily pass for one. He was intelligent, charming, and capable of luring his victims into a false sense of security. He was a chameleon, able to adapt and disappear back into the faceless stream of highway traffic. Let's talk about the man they were hunting. Herb Baumeister appeared to be the epitome of success. He was a married father of 3, owned a successful chain of thrift stores, and lived on a sprawling, multi-million-dollar estate in Indiana called Fox Hollow Farm. He was a businessman, a family man, a respected member of his community. No one would have ever suspected the dark secret he was hiding. No one could have imagined that his idyllic 18-acre property was, in fact, a graveyard. The investigation into the missing truckers on the I-70 corridor eventually hit a wall. But a separate investigation was heating up in Indianapolis, focused on the disappearance of several men from the city's gay bars. Detective Mary Wilson of the Marion County Sheriff's Department was relentless in her pursuit of the truth. She began to suspect that a serial predator was targeting the community. Her investigation led her to a man who claimed he had a terrifying encounter at Herb Baumeister's home. An encounter he barely survived. This witness gave police the crucial link they needed. He told them about Baumeister's pool house, describing a bizarre and unnerving experience that gave investigators probable cause to look deeper. But Baumeister was always one step ahead. As the net began to close, he denied police permission to search his property. While his wife was out of town, she grew increasingly disturbed by her husband's behavior and the grim discoveries her son had made on their land, human bones. Terrified, she finally consented to a search. What investigators found at Fox Hollow Farm was a scene of unimaginable horror. Scattered throughout the wooded back acres of the estate were the skeletal remains of at least 11 people. The once beautiful property had been turned into a personal dumping ground. Faced with the mountain of evidence, and with his double life about to be exposed, Herb Baumeister fled. He drove north, crossing into Canada. There, in a public park, he ended his own life, leaving behind a note that spoke of a failing marriage and business, but never once confessed to the atrocities he had committed. The remains found at Fox Hollow Farm were identified as the missing men from the Indianapolis area. But what about the truckers from the I-70 murders? The methods were similar, and the timeline fit. Investigators strongly believe that Baumeister was responsible for both sets of crimes. They theorize he used his life as a businessman, which involved travel, as a cover. He would pick up truckers, lure them back to his home state under some pretext, and commit his crimes there. Because he took his own life, Baumeister was never tried or convicted. He took his secrets to the grave, leaving behind a legacy of pain and dozens of unanswered questions for the victims' families. The story of the I-70 Strangler is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide in plain sight. It reveals the vulnerability of those who live their lives on the move, and the terrifying reality that a monster can wear the mask of a friendly, successful family man. It's a story of dogged police work crossing state lines and a community gripped by fear. And it's a tribute to the victims, the hardworking men who were just trying to do their job when they crossed paths with a predator on America's loneliest highways. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the cases that linger in the shadows. Stay safe out there.